What was your creepy unexplained experience as a child? One night when I was a teenager, my whole family had gone to bed. It was around 11:30 or midnight. My bedroom door was open, and I had a clear view of the dining room table from my bedroom. Everything was quiet and the house was very dark, since all the lights were off, and we all suddenly heard the distinct sound of a kitchen chair scraping across the floor with some weight behind it, as if someone was sitting in it and scooted. Everyone was in bed and the dogs were accounted for. My eyes shot open, and I was petrified with fear, and my dad got up and turned the lights on to see what it was. We still can't explain it. It's always nice when someone experiences the weirdness with you, then at least you know it happened. I tried cutting grass on the side of a hill on a riding lawnmower when I was about 11 years old. It was too steep of an angle, and it rolled over on me. I was completely stuck. After a minute or so of wriggling around, I panicked. The next thing I remember is standing up next to the mower after blacking out. I don't know how I got out from under. I assume adrenaline. You just respawned. When my brother and I were kids, our mom and grandma left us in the car one day when they ran into the supermarket. There was an old looking car like a Lincoln or a Cadillac parked nearby. A man in a zoot suit type outfit with a feather in his hat like a cartoon pimp would wear got out and went around to the back. He opened his trunk and two ladies climbed out of the trunk, a white woman in a black dress and a black woman in a white dress. Both were formal looking dresses. The white woman saw us looking at her and stared at us. She kept staring at us for a minute. It was kind of an intense stare, but also empty at the same time. I remember feeling nervous, so I told my brother to look away. He asked me why, and I said just do it, and we both looked away. I have no idea, but I remember freaking out, and for some reason really didn't want the man to see us too. I kind of sunk down into the floor for a few minutes and they were gone. When I looked again, I asked my brother if he saw where they went, and he said they went in the store. We agreed that was weird. We told my mom when she got back, but she didn't believe it, and she and my grandma laughed. She said if anyone dressed like that was in the store she would have seen them. My brother and I have talked about it a few times since. He still remembers it clearly, and so do I, but he says he didn't feel scared like I did, just thought it was really strange. I still feel kind of weird when I think about it. I had this couch with a couple springs missing. They popped up, and my dad removed them from the inside, so you sat really low on that section, almost as if you're getting sucked into the couch. My brother and I used to fight over who had to sit there when watching TV downstairs. I usually made him do it. One day I had some friends over for a sleepover. I was on the couch. My buddies were on yoga mats on the floor. I felt a kick in the night, thought it was one of my buddies, and told him politely to duck off. Another kick, right under my back. How is that possible? I got up, turned on the lamp, and my buddies were both passed out. I went back to the couch, took off the cushion and looked. Nothing. Get back on the couch, turn off lamp behind me, and try to go to sleep. It must have been only a few minutes when my one friend whispered who the other dude was when I turned on the light. I said, "What?" He said something like, "You turned on the lamp." I was pretending I was asleep because I thought it was your parents. I saw someone standing behind the couch. It wasn't your dad. We then all got freaked out, ran upstairs to my room, and slept in there instead of the basement. A few weeks later I get home from school and my dad is tossing the couch in the back of his pickup. I assumed he bought a new one, but no. He said he was sick of seeing it in his house because it was his dad's, and his dad always used to rough him up when he was younger. Usually by punching/poking him in the back where his shirt would hide the bruises. Lived in a pretty rural area. Forested with a small brook. Chickens out back. Garden in the front. Don't want to share a room with my little brother anymore. Get an old downstairs study turned into a bedroom. Very bad idea. Many years of creepy experiences that were all in my head from being on the bottom floor. 4 AM. Very dark. But doggo wants toilet. We don't have a door for him, so I have to let him out and wait and let him back in. Dog walks into pitch blackness of front garden. I stare at the dark shapes waiting for him to come back. Suddenly from the drive to the left, a man-shaped dark smudge starts walking into the garden, around the tree, through the garden and round to the back of the house. I'm ducking shitting myself. No sign of dog. Dog is German Shepherd Rottweiler crossbreed. Surely he would attack intruder? Waiting impatiently for dog. So scared. Mon dog. Scary figure is here somewhere. Don't wanna be indoor waiting. The figure appears again. Back the way it came. Yeah, alright, onions have lair action. It's my uncle. Dog returns. No bark cause he knew uncle. Uncle leaves without another word. Okay, so the next day I question as to why the fuck my uncle turns up at 4 AM at our house. Apparently he feeds the f***ing chickens at 4 in the morning and has been doing it every night for years. The part that remains unexplained to this day to me is why on earth he did it. He retired early, so he had no work, and we lived way away, so why drive 2 hours in the middle of the night to feed the chickens? Why not just come in the day and say hello to his family? Weird as f. Just imagine what the chickens were thinking. So when I was around 3 or so, we lived in a 2-story house with no balconies on the outside at all cause we were in a subdivision. My room, which was huge for a 3-year-old, had a crescent-shaped window above a couch along one side of the wall, and my bed was on the other side of the wall, facing that window, and I have a very strange memory from that room. I remember waking up in the middle of the night to see a black silhouette of a man peering through that 2nd floor window. And the weird thing is that the feeling that goes along with that memory was pure terror. I remember not being able to move and him just staring at me, but my mom believes that wasn't the case. When I asked her if I ever did or said anything strange as a kid a couple of years ago, she said to me, well, when you were super young you used to tell me and your dad stories of a man who would float up to your window at night and talk to you. You spoke rather fondly of him, as though he was a friend, and you said he was very friendly. And this hasn't ceased to freak me out a fair bit, because the side of the house was just a wall of brick, except for that window. I have no idea what it means. When I was like 3 my family lived in a condo, and it was springtime, around Easter, and I remember we walked outside one morning to find a bunch of small chocolate eggs, candy, on our front lawn. My parents didn't put them there and neither did any of our neighbors. The strange thing about it was, there was holes in all of them. We never were able to explain how they got there. Another weird experience would be when I was in about 8th grade. I was on the couch in the basement, and in the basement we had sliding glass doors and the doors would lead out to a small deck, and in the backyard. There were woods directly behind. At night the sliding glass doors were very dark, you couldn't really see out of them from the inside, but standing outside you could see in, which I never liked. Always felt weird, and like I was being watched. Well, this night I was watching TV on the couch, and my head and eyes were facing the doors. I suddenly saw a bright flash of light come from the outside of these doors. It was like a camera flash, and as I see this, I have the realization that I'm unable to move. I was completely paralyzed. I was unable to move, scream. I'm not sure how long it lasted, it was probably like 2 minutes tops, and when I finally came completely aware and able to move I realized I had pissed all over myself. It sounds like an episode of sleep paralysis, but I was never asleep. Shared before, but still the creepiest thing from probably my whole damn life. When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time at my grandma's house. Both of my parents worked long hours, so her place became like a second home. She was a tough old woman, rail thin, but strong. Sometimes I'd watch her going about her routine and wonder if she was some kind of a witch. She just had a witchy way about her. But, of course, that might just be what resourcefulness looks like to a kid. Anyway, her house didn't help. It was old. Everything in it was old, and it was dark. I don't know how best to describe it other than to say I always felt that being inside my grandma's house wasn't much different from being outside of it. In any season the windows in the house would stay jammed open with old bent screens, which had to be shimmed into place with old slats from some discarded louver door. Grandma had this rusty pot-belly stove right smack in the middle of her bedroom. I remember constantly dodging it as I ran through the house playing. At night, she'd load the stove with one great big chunk of hickory, and you could see the flames licking through the cracks. I'd lay on the floor with my sleeping bag, positioning myself so that the stove was in between me and Grandma's bed. Facing this direction meant that I could easily see the window at the foot of her bed. It was like a nightlight for me. Everything in that house was black at night, unless there was a window nearby. So, there I lay one night, It was chilly, and I remember having trouble sleeping because the moonlight coming through the window was so bright. It was late, which meant the stove wasn't roaring anymore. Besides my grandma's breathing, the whole house was dead silent. It was just the two of us. No one else was in the house. Without any warning, a tall black figure calmly walks from the shadows at the far side of the room. He passed between the stove and bed, across the floor just a foot from my head, and out through the doorway into the kitchen. I was petrified. Couldn't move an inch. This may sound crazy, but had I felt like a burglar was in the house, I'd like to think I would moved, or shouted, or something. I didn't think it was a burglar, though. No specific reason why. It just felt wrong. I don't think I fell asleep that night. All I remember is staring at the kitchen doorway for a long time. When my grandma woke up, she rolled out of bed and grabbed the fire poker. I sat up and began to tell her what I'd saw. Like I said, I always felt like my grandma was a little bit witchy. After I finished telling her about the tall man, she just poked at the coals in the stove and said, "HM, haven't seen him in a long time." I've told this before, but hey, when I was a boy of 12 I had a dream that I was standing near a house that was on fire. There was a little girl there who was much younger than me, about 2 years old. I thought she was there alone, so I held her hand, hoping to find her parents. She was watching the firemen. Eventually, one of the firemen came over to me and, for some reason, told me that I would one day have 2 children. Boy and girl twins, and they would be my only children. He then took the little girl's hand and she walked away with him. This dream felt like no other I'd ever had, and because of that, I was absolutely convinced that it was real. Many times in the years that followed I told people about the dream, or that I knew that one day I would be the father of boy/girl twins. Multiple people in my life have confirmed that I told them this. When I was 31 I got married. She gave birth to our boy/girl twins a few years later. Her father was the fire chief of the town I grew up in. It wasn't until my children were born that I made the connection about my wife's father being a fireman, nor the fact that she was 10 years younger than me. When I was little I would hallucinate if I was sick. My mum recalls me seeing a wolf following her, etc. But she said the one thing that used to freak her out was 2 children I said I could see in the garden. I told her that they wanted me to play with them, to which my mum would look out into the front garden and see nothing. One night I was sleeping walking, which wasn't something that I used to do. I was about 5 and it wasn't that late, so my parents were in the living room. I remember waking up with tears in my face and my mum hugging me while my dad was walking around the garden and looking around. From what my mum tells me, she and my dad heard me screaming and ran to find I wasn't in my bed and saw the front door open, and outside I was kneeling on the ground screaming and crying. Apparently I would shouted leave me alone and my arms were pushing at air as if I was trying to bat something away. To this day the front door's locked and the keys are hung up on a hook. My mum swears that I was in the same spot that I always said the 2 children were standing. When I was a baby, me and my brother slept in the same room in an apartment with our pre-divorced parents. At certain times in the night, a shadow would go from the bathroom into my brother and I's room. It never really did anything bad, just walked around. Until one night, when I started crying, my mom came into our room and saw the shadow standing over me and reaching for me. She didn't like that and so took us to local McDonald's. We soon moved out and haven't been there since. McDonald's is the safest place to go after being threatened by a ghost. After all, I'm loving it. Thank you very much for watching. For more content please leave a like and subscribe to this channel. I would also appreciate you commenting on this video. Have a great day.